All right, guys, we're back with another video, and I have a special guest today. This is Aleo. He is a Christian schizophrenic artist, and today we're going to be talking about his testimony, how he started with the schizophrenia, why it started, the things he's been seeing, and also his beliefs about what he's seeing, what he's experiencing. Yeah, so anyway, let me know where it all started for you.
Yeah, so for a while I was homeless. Um, this was back in 2016, 2017 when I wasn't couch surfing, I was sleeping on the street, right? And I think that's when it started happening. It tends to manifest, schizophrenia tends to manifest around the age it started with me, like 2021, 20 or 21. I started having like all kinds of delusions. I never had auditory or visual hallucinations, but it was very oriented around paranoia and delusions. So that's when it started. I had a lot going on, and the stress kind of cracked me.
Did it start? So you said it began when you became homeless. Was it any kind of substances you were using that caused it as well, or was it just the stress of being
No,
homeless?
I used to. It was the stress. Yeah, it was the stress. And I partied a little hard. I never did like drugs, but or hardcore drugs, but it was like just it didn't help. So it was mainly the stress. I think like bouncing around L.A. County, kind of sleeping here and there, couch surfing mainly. Not yeah, and working two jobs. Working like I normally had two jobs. Yeah. So
And did it, you said in your videos on TikTok that it started in 2017, I believe?
that was when I received my diagnosis, and that's when it actually like manifested fully, like to the most dramatic extent. I had been working, I had gone from homeless to working as a biomedical research programmer at a place called Scripps Research Institute. And I think that's when the stress just caught up to me because I was in a totally new environment. I had moved from LA to San Diego, which is where the institute was. Um, and there was a moment where I thought I had a realization that I had dreamed the whole week before. So when when that happened, I kind of lost control of my mind, and I was never violent, but I did end up in the hospital for like a month.
And what sent you to the hospital? Did you have some kind of psychotic breakdown or you started seeing things scaring you? How did you end up in the hospital?
Yeah, I thought the Archangel Michael was talking to me. And a lot of people are like, oh, I believe in, angels talking to people, and I believe in it too. But whatever was oppressing me was not the Archangel Michael. um, there was a lot of like just paranoia all around, and delusions. Thankfully, I was staying with some family. They are doctors, and it didn't take much persuading for me to go to the hospital because I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, and I didn't think anything was wrong with me. But I'm glad that my family in were doctors. So.
That's good. So when it comes to the hallucination or was it like an auditory thing? You started hearing voices in your head saying it's Archangel Michael, or how did you experience that?
It's a little complicated. I thought that the angels and had this device, like a computer that would beam people dreams. And whoever would receive these dreams would like be able to test different outcomes in their dreams. And I thought that was happening to me, and it completely ruined me. At least for a short time. Uh, So I thought that the Archangel Michael was communicating with me through these dreams. Um, it was very schizophrenic.
Mhm. What were the kind of things Archangel Michael or this angelic being was telling you? Like, what specific things, if you remember any?
Yeah, uh,
Was it saying that you're important in terms of like future events, that you're the Messiah?
yeah,
It's very common to hear
yeah.
that.
You've done your research. That seems to be common among people with schizophrenia, especially paranoid schizophrenia.
Mhm.
Because I thought I was going to be the Pope, uh, like the last Pope before the apocalypse, and I was destined to carry out this big plan. And honestly, that's what malignant spirits like to do. And I definitely have an illness, like I know something's not right with my brain. That's why I take medication, and it really helps. It makes me feel like more in control and more like myself. Um, but I also believe that whatever was oppressing me were taking advantage of that. Um, as far as like the messages that I received or I thought I was receiving, they were more like just really, really scary stuff, really like um, not not of God stuff, and I can't remember the details, but and also it's a little complicated because like I would like as I went through life, as I went, through daily life, and I thought I had dreamed the whole week before. Like I thought it was like intense deja vu. So I thought I was remembering what I had dreamed as like the days progressed.
Mhm.
And then that translated into me projecting what I thought would happen in the future, and when similar things to what I predicted happened, that made me more unstable. And then when things didn't happen the way I thought they'd happen, it also made me more unstable.
That's interesting. Tell me a little bit about your art because you're a content creator on TikTok and you basically drew your visions right after you developed schizophrenia. And the art that you were showing was very interesting. I'm going to post a few pictures of it. But yeah, talk about your art a little bit and what that all came from.
Art helps me to process my experiences. In the past, I did it like after my breakdown, I did it in an unhealthy way. Um, as in, like, I brought them a little bit too much to life than
Mm.
I was ready for. But now that I've healed, I feel like I've healed. It feels something safe to do, and I can do it reliably and without fear of bringing too much life to my delusions. In fact, it helps me bring them to life and sharing them online, like on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, having people connect with it, and having people ask sincere questions about it, like you are. It really helps. It really does. Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people, when they hear this stuff, they automatically dismiss it and they're like, this is just a hallucination. But one thing that really gets me, because I've talked to a lot of schizophrenics, I've interviewed one other guy. His name is Exorad Magical. You've probably seen him around TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whenever they talk about hallucinations and the kind of things these voices say, which is always on like a negative pattern, it's always the same kind of stuff. The hallucinations are often the same. The voices are often the same. And another interesting thing I noticed, I don't know if you've experienced this, but when it comes to hearing the voices, people describe them as a different voice from their own. You know how we have an internal dialogue, right?
Yeah. Internal
Talk to
monologue.
myself, internal monologue, yeah. But the voices seem to be separate and have a different tone and a completely different personality, as if it truly is a separate being, a non-physical being. Is that how you experience it too?
Whew. Um, Other people with schizophrenia I've talked to who hear voices, and people I've listened to say the same thing. So you're right on the bat. Um, it's like I think a lot of it is spiritual oppression, because whether it be a mental illness, like a valid mental illness, or even a physical illness, malignant spirits like to take advantage of that, like especially when you're in a vulnerable state.
Oh yeah.
um, and that's why I think the voices people hear, uh, and I can't speak with 100% confidence. I can just talk about my own experiences and the experiences of people I've read about and spoken with. They seem very demonic.
In nature. Yeah, they're very negative. I did a video, one of my recent videos called Voices from the Void, and I talk about the experiences of people who have committed like horrific acts because voices told them to do so. Like
Yeah.
this one mother, well, thank God she didn't commit this act, but she started hearing like gremlin-like voices, kind of like she described it as a voice from Lord of the Rings. What is that little goblin guy's name?
Golem.
Golem, yeah. She said this golem-like voice told her to harm her baby as she was holding it, like to hurt it really bad. And then there are other accounts where mothers actually went through with it. In fact, it's pretty common for schizophrenic parents to have thoughts of harming, not necessarily thoughts, but the voices telling them to harm their children. And when I asked the psychotherapist this, the one I interviewed, he stated that the reason these voices or these evil spirits hate children is because they're closer to God. And anything in
Yeah.
God's image, spirits hate. And children, out of all of us, out of all adults, are the closest to God.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus put a lot of emphasis on protecting kids.
And becoming
Um, hmm?
and becoming like a child as well, like metaphor
Yeah. Yeah. Childlike faith. That's really important.
and
Something
curiosity.
I think we all are on that path to learning that, some slower than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the golem-like voice is seems like it's affected more than one person.
Oh yeah.
Um, it's like it's really sinister, and people go like sometimes like I spoke with a friend who like was struggling with this, and I think that when people say, oh, like, one way to test if it's God's voice or your voice or a demon's voice is to see if it lines up with the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does, then it's probably God's voice and you can trust it. But, you know, uh, interpretations of scripture vary across time and across your location and your denomination or your church. And also, demons are able to pinpoint what you don't know, like gray areas in your faith. So it just confuses you, uh, as it did with me and a few of the people I know or know about.
Yeah, that's what I learned about them. Two things I learned is they're opposed to anything beautiful or religious specifically. Like when I talked to the psychotherapist, and he worked in one of the biggest mental hospitals in the world, he also worked in a prison. And one of the prisoners told him that when he reads Psalms 23, the voices scream like hot worms in a frying pan, like it hurts them, and they start to go away. And so what he started doing is he printed out a whole bunch of Psalms 23, on a piece of paper, started handing it out to the prisoners, and they're all saying the same thing. The voices hate Psalms 23 for some reason. And
Is
then
that wait
The
wait
Lord is my
Lord,
shepherd.
the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, that's right.
And
Wow, this is powerful.
very powerful. And another thing I found out is they're incredibly intelligent. They'll use half truths. They're not like, you know how in movies, demons or spirits are portrayed as these kind of goofy gremlin, they're evil, but they're not intelligent. But they are
Yeah,
very intelligent. They tell you things you don't know. They also
yeah,
like to do the opposite of what God says to do in the Bible. So, there's godly synchronicities and then there's demonic synchronicities, and they make you feel connected to them by giving you things that you don't know and then it happening, right? So let's say a
yeah,
voice, for example, a common thing that people experience, I think it's called what's the word? Retrocausality, where they get a thought of something or a person pops into their mind and then they see him in like the third aisle in Walmart. You know, events like
yeah,
that, events or people, and then they start seeing these things and synchronicities start lining up. And so they get into that kind of new age side of spirituality because they're getting these thoughts. But for all we know,
yeah.
it could be from spirits. And then there's synchronicity from God, right? Because the word coincidence doesn't exist in Hebrew. So, for
Right.
example, the fact that you have the book of that psychotherapist and I also have it is a pretty interesting, I think, is a godly coincidence or synchronicity.
Yeah, yeah. Those what's the term used?
Retrocausality. It's basically where the future affects
Retrocausality.
the past.
Yeah, that happened a lot to me. It doesn't happen anymore ever since I feel like I've healed. But it was very bad for me.
Mhm.
You know, like I would imagine these people, and it made me paranoid, and then like the people would show up. Like I'd see them and I'd just get really paranoid and like not make eye contact. It's wild. Like people either brush it off, like, oh, like when they'll hear about it, it's like it's just a coincidence, it's just your imagination. And other people who are like really quick to believe anything, they'll espouse like really new agey occulty things on you, like, oh, you're psychic. It's like so many people are commenting on my videos like, oh, you're psychic. So like, please stop telling me I'm psychic. I'm not psychic. I was oppressed. It was very harmful, and it ruined my life for a short time.
Well, I think it's very good that you're incredibly like self-aware of this stuff, that it is spiritual oppression, because a lot of people will tell you that no, it's not spiritual oppression, you're just seeing stuff. This is all chemicals firing in the brain or a chemical imbalance, when that's never been proven. In fact, I've spoken to the psychotherapist who's actually healed schizophrenics for life, right? Which, according to the industry, is not supposed to happen. They're supposed to be on medication for their entire life. But because of his realization that this is spiritual, because he used to be atheist, he didn't believe in all this stuff until he started experiencing, like, I'm sure you've seen some of it in my video, like really bizarre experiences to where the voices would actually manifest into physical sounds like static, and they would talk through his patients, telling him, "You don't have a right to interfere in our way of life."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what he basically told me, their whole goal of these voices, just like the Bible kind of states, that they're very aware. I like the story of Legion. They're very aware of their fate in terms of being thrown in the lake of fire at the end. So they don't have a goal. They don't have any kind of, they don't want money, power, none of that. They kind of just want to feed off people's negative emotional energy. They're just
it
chaotic.
ruined their
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've experienced this before. Like, have you ever had a panic attack and then your energy is just drained? Like, you can feel your life force or energy leaving. It's kind of,
Just
yeah. The psychotherapist described it as Jerry. He kind of described it as working in the hot sun all day. That's what it feels like, having a panic attack and then having your energy just leave you. And a lot of schizophrenics tell him that, and it's a common
I'm
pattern.
not sure if I've experienced that, but that does make sense.
If
I tend to lean more to like there's a very physical side of mental illness.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sure you agree, like that. As I mentioned before, that these demons, these parasitic entities, feed off that, like kind of playing off what you
yeah.
just said. But they are very intelligent. Like they're sorry, can you hear that? It's
No,
like
no, I can hear. I'm fine.
okay, okay. Lawn lawnmower,
So
but
I can hear you perfectly fine.
okay. Right. They're very intelligent because when you think about, and I'm gonna go kind of on a tangent here, but like if these spiritual beings reside in higher spatial dimensions, think of how drastically more complex and powerful and intelligent they are, because with each spatial dimension comes increasing spatial complexity, so things can connect in ways that they can't in our dimension. So it makes sense that they would be drastically more powerful and intelligent, and they can, pull from these endless pools of knowledge, and that attracts people. Um, it attracted me, not consciously, because I love knowledge and I love reading. I love like I have select interests, but like I won't be interested in learning about everything.
Mhm.
But secret knowledge is very enticing to a lot of people. And it's and I still love knowledge, so
Yeah, same here. Just like I said in the beginning about how spirits do the opposite of what God says to do. In the Bible, it says God conceals a thing for his glory, and it's the honor of kings to search it out. And demons also show concealed knowledge to make us feel like good about ourselves and to kind of open ourselves up more to these spirits. And that's why people get into New Age and witchcraft and trying substances. They become kind of friends. It becomes their spirit guide. You know how we have the Holy Spirit, right? And that's our companion. That's
yeah,
the spirit that tells us good things and to do good things, to do positive things, biblical things. And then wicked spirits are the opposite. They call them spirit guides, a lot of these New Age people,
yeah,
but they lead
yeah,
them to do destructive things to their own demise. At first, they might lead them to some good things, but one thing I noticed is they do a thing called the 10 truths, one lie. They might tell you 10 things that are true and then one thing that's a lie to get you to kind of forget about that one lie. So again, they're very, very intelligent, as you stated. But yeah, can you talk about?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go
huh?
ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, they are they're sneaky.
Okay, best way to put it.
So like mixing truth with the lies is a very powerful way of deception.
Yeah,
Um,
especially.
and when people fall into new age, it's often like they've built trust with these beings.
Hmm.
And I'm careful to use the term new age because it is kind of like an umbrella term, and but the like it's a loosely connected bits and pieces of a lot of very different ideas.
Yeah,
But I think what we're talking about clearly is like the very spiritual, like,
witchcraft and crystal
yeah, lean into
rituals.
your own understanding.
Mhm.
And self-love is very important. I think
Oh, yeah,
Jesus said, love others as you love yourself, right? And how can you do that if you don't love yourself? But with a lot of new age spirituality, it turns that love for yourself into like self-worship, and it's used as
an
like
idol.
it's considered, yeah, it's considered, that's what's considered self-love now. So then you get the reaction from Christians who say self-love is not good, which is not good in itself,
Yeah,
because it's like it's kind of like, and you can kind of see the dark spiritual forces kind of being manipulative there.
playing with this idea. Because yeah, the way New Age presents it, that it's prideful, right, to love yourself. So a lot of Christians see it, oh, it's prideful to love yourself. But in reality, Jesus commands us to love ourselves because if we can't love ourselves, we're not going to love others. And that's just a fact. If we don't respect
Yeah,
ourselves, love ourselves, if we don't want the truth, then we're not going to tell others the truth. And that's just how it works. But
right, right.
can you talk about your experience with the alien grays? I found that video very interesting on your TikTok.
Oh boy, yeah.
Here we go.
uh a lot of people have asked, did I know about the Grays before my delusions? And yes, I did. I had heard of the Grays. But the delusions kind of expounded on them. They elaborated on them. And even if those delusions were true, I don't trust the source because, as we said, deception is like always mixed with truth when it's demonic. Um, So they built upon certain things, and like later, when I was reading up on like Grays and like research that had been done, like concerning UAPs and Grays and dark spiritual activity, I was like, wow, some of this I hadn't heard of this, and yet my delusions told me this, and now I'm reading about it. My memory's a little shoddy,
Mhm.
and it's hard for me to keep track of things, so I can't exactly tell you a lot of what those things were. I'll have to get back to you on that, but there
I
was a
remember,
lot of,
I remember in the video you made a connection between the biblical Nephilim and the alien grays.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was part of the delusions. Like the I think later I read in Enoch about the Watchers, the Elohim, I think they're called,
Yeah,
um, when they descended and they exchanged knowledge for sex with humans. And then there was the offspring, and God was really angry at these beings for you know, creating a different, like a race of people who would like suffer spiritually. And then he cast them out of these higher realms, these angel-like beings,
hmm,
and they became distorted. They shrank, their heads kind of like swelled. They in my vision, there were like, how they have the big eyes and like
yeah, the
traditional,
big eyes, big old head, little mouth.
yeah, like those were like visors, and they came off, and like they would, like underneath, they were like these like little eyes that if you stared into them for too long you would go insane. Like that was part of the delusions. And they had this plot to like the Nephilim were taught to believe that God hated them. So, and the Greys were behind that ideation mainly. And it was like it was like I don't know the truth behind that. I don't know the lie, and I can't rely on that. Like I think that if Nephilim are around today, personally, I would think they were to be ministered to. Like if because like or like descendants of the Nephilim. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, you also stated that in your delusions that the Nephilim were among us and they look like normal humans.
Yeah, yeah. They look like normal humans. Like they basically were normal. I remember in the delusions there were uh, like oh I don't. Geez, I think there was like something they did to like make themselves assimilate better in a society, like not have people like pay attention to them. Like they were part of these like secret societies, and they were like taught lies about God, and they were taught like lies about all kinds of things, and they wanted to um partake in like the like they were on the side of the demons because the demons were like telling them like this is what you have to do because God hates you, and you're gonna be destroyed anyway, so you might as well.
Technically, I mean, if that is true and the Nephilim are among us, demons and Nephilim would be like kind of like cousins or brothers and sisters because Nephilim are the disembodied spirits, or demons are the disembodied spirits of Nephilim, according to Enoch and a couple other sources.
Yeah, it depends. I'm not sure how much I lean into the Book of Enoch because I'm not sure on its reliability.
Mhm.
Even though there is a lot of like very deep stuff in there, I'm not sure I can rely on it. If it is true, gee, that's deep.
Yeah.
Um, I
The
don't
way
know, like
Sorry. So the way I see the Book of Enoch is I see it as a really good study guide to get into the mindset of the ancient Hebrews in terms of what they believed before the flood, what they experienced. Because the reason I give some credibility to the Book of Enoch, or more credibility than most would, is it was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls along with other scripture, meaning that it was important enough to the early church that they put it next to these scriptures, to these holy scriptures, which means I think it's a great study guide because it kind of explains certain details that the Bible doesn't really discuss, such as
sure.
where demons come from,
Yeah.
who are the sons of God, right? Because a lot of people, when they read the Bible, they just kind of interpret it in their own way, like, oh, the sons of God were just human, or the son of God
Yeah.
is this, right? But the Book of
Yeah.
Enoch says, no, these are angelic beings that fell from grace, and they started doing things that is opposed to God.
Yeah. It depends. Like, what do you think about the descendants of the Nephilim? Like, where do you stand on that? If they're around, like, if they've been around for like thousands of years and they just kind of kept to themselves and
Yeah,
like
so
mixed with society.
yeah, my view on that is if you read in Genesis, it says there were Nephilim in those days, meaning pre-flood days, and also after. So
Yep.
somehow they survived. There's some theories on how they survived, such as making their own ark, according to the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's a story where these angelic beings created their own ark, and the Nephilim survived. Well, some of them survived on that ark, and then their descendants. Yeah, it's called the Epic of Gilgamesh. I don't know if you heard of
Yeah,
it.
I know the Epic of. I haven't read it, but I
Yeah, but
know.
it talks about a similar kind of story to the flood. There was a worldwide flood, and these Nephilim beings built their own ark because they got visions that destruction was coming. So it would
Right.
make sense how they survived. But yeah, I don't know if that's true. Again, it's just a theory and it's just from the Book of Gilgamesh. Don't know how reliable that source is. But my view is if they are alive, then they would be more on the elite side, like secret societies. Because what do they call royalty, right? Like blue bloods or something like that. They have a different gene than most humans, I believe. I forgot the gene name. But oh yeah, also it would make sense as to why we have royalty to begin with. Why are some humans better than others in terms of ruling, right? Because pre-flood days, who were the kings and queens? They were the Nephilim, the giants, right? The demigods, which is a Nephilim, half angel, half human. And it would make sense that royalties are descendants from all these Nephilim beings.
Interesting.
Yeah, how else would they become royalty? Especially if the earth is owned by the devil.
I don't know. I don't know. Like if someone in front of me was a descendant of the Nephilim, I I would have to treat them as someone who could be ministered to. I wouldn't, say you deserve to die,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think it's my responsibility to decide, because I think even in the book of Enoch or one of the books of Enoch, don't quote me on this, but I think they had the opportunity to turn to God,
They did.
like the Nephilim and the descendants of the Nephilim. They did?
I don't know about the Nephilim, but the angels actually, I'm not sure if they did. If you're talking about Enoch 2 or 3, those are
Yeah.
more unreliable because they weren't found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. I personally, if I view any book of Enoch reliable, probably be the first one, and the second and third one I'd be more skeptical of personally. But I know in
Okay.
the first one, they did want mercy, and I think they talked to Enoch to talk to God basically. And God said, no, like you fell from grace, no, that's it. Because they were too ashamed to even look up at the sky at what they did. And so they,
The Elohim, the
yeah,
the what?
the Watchers, according to Enoch, if I remember correct, that's what.
Yeah, I think the descendants though had the opportunity. I
That
don't
makes
remember
sense.
which book of Enoch, so the reliability there, but I'll have to check.
That's very interesting, man. It reminds me of the movie A They Live. I don't know if you've seen it, where a guy
No,
puts on glasses and some humans aren't humans but aliens. You seen that?
weird. No, I
It's
haven't.
a great movie. It's from the 1980s. You might maybe relate to that
What's it
movie.
called?
It's called They Live.
They Live. Okay.
This movie is very interesting. It's in fact, the director calls it a documentary.
Oh,
So in this movie, a guy finds a pair of sunglasses and he puts them on and he looks around and he realizes not all humans are humans. Like he looks at the TV and he sees news anchors are actually aliens when he puts on these glasses. And then he looks at like police officers and politicians and he's all like, not everyone is human. A lot of these people are aliens in disguise.
weird. That
Yeah,
sounds so interesting. Oh,
it's a great movie. You definitely should check it out.
80s? It's from the 80s.
From the 80s, I'll send you a link to it. It's called They Live. John Carpenter, if I'm not mistaken. Great movie. It's one of my all-time favorites. It has like it's the history behind that movie is kind of interesting because when it came out in theaters, it got really popular, but then it was taken down from theaters soon after.
Whoa, that is so scary.
And the directors, he straight up said, like, this is I think the director or the main actor said this movie is not a movie, it's a documentary. Like just straight up saying that.
Jeez.
I'll send you a trailer to check it out, but I feel like
Yeah.
you might relate to that movie in terms of what you're talking about, like
Oh,
Nephilim,
that's so
nuts and
scary.
all that.
Yeah, that's so scary. Like the question is, do they consider themselves human if they are around?
Yeah.
And that's what's scary. Like the delusions added so much to what I had like thought before, and like now, like a lot of it seems to be lining up. But again, I can't trust those delusions. Well, it was great talking to you.
Yep.
Honored to be on your honored to be doing this with you.
Thank you so much for
And
taking time out of your day to do this. I really appreciate that.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll keep up with you. Keep up with your
Yep.
videos.
I'll keep up with your videos too, and I'll post all your social media links in my bio below, all your art, your catalogs. And yeah, until next time.